I know it's like the opposite time of the year for some spooky vibes, but let's still have some spooky vibes, shall we? I mentioned in my 12 month of the year character design video that I originally planned to include the zodiac signs of each month within those designs, but ended up deciding against it since it would have made the designs maybe a little bit too crowded. It turned out to be a good decision overall, and especially when I got an idea for a whole separate video dedicated specifically to the zodiacs. First of all, what are the zodiac signs? Zodiac means the area of the sky that is around the Earth. The area that from our perspective seems to be the closest to us, even though in reality the stars forming the zodiac can be widely varied distances from us. The area is separated into 12 different sectors, so to speak, that the sun seems to be moving through in our field of view as we spin around it over the course of the year. These sectors are named after the most prominent constellation of each sector, and these constellations are the zodiac signs. According to astrological viewpoints, each person can be linked to one of these signs based on what sign was ruling the night sky when they were born. Some people believe that the ruling sign can affect a person's personality and even future. In this more human-centric view of the zodiac signs, they can also be referred to as horoscope signs. So, today I'm turning the 12 signs of the zodiac into horror-themed characters. The connecting motif behind all of these characters is that each of them has met an unjust or violent death and has somehow come back as a ghost, supernatural creature, or otherwise undead being to seek their revenge. Their ghost type, powers, and backstory being inspired by their sign's lore and characteristics. The concept of the zodiac man is the belief that each of these signs is ruling over different parts of the human body, and especially in the olden days, this could be used in medicine, for example when deciding what was the best or worst time to operate on a specific body part. One of my leading ideas for this whole character design concept of zodiac signs as vengeful spirits was to have that body part for each character be where they have gotten the fatal damage that turned them dead. I ended up not fully committing to that idea though, since with some characters I had better ideas for the reason of their death, and trying to twist it to align with the zodiac body part would have felt kind of forced. But I still aim for the body part in question to play some kind of role in the design. Each of the zodiac signs is also associated with certain other things like planets, colors, and elements, so I tried to incorporate also those to my designs as creatively as I could. So yeah, we have a lot to get inspired by, so let's just start and see what I have been cooking. Aries is considered as the first zodiac sign since Aries season starts when the sun passes the vernal equinox, so the spot in the sky where the sun is in the moment of spring equinox. Spring equinox is viewed as the zodiac new year, so Aries is the first sign that starts the cycle. As I said, each zodiac sign is associated with one of the 4 elements, so water, fire, earth, or air, as well as a certain celestial object, which is described as ruling over the sign. Since I have used Celestial Object as my inspiration in so many of my previous videos, with these characters I referred to them only when it was convenient. However, when it comes to the elements, I relied on them quite heavily and tried to make each sign's element clear from their character design and make all the characters belonging to the same element kinda cohesive with one another. So yeah, Aries is a fire sign and is ruled over by the planet Mars. Aries is your sign if you are born somewhere between March 21 and April 19, because the sun passes the Aries constellation during that time frame. Aries' symbol / what the Aries constellation is said to depict is a ram, a male sheep. Aries originates from a Greek myth about 2 royal children whose stepmother planned to get them killed, but who were saved by a flying golden-wooled ram. One of the children fell off and drowned in the sea during the journey, but the other one survived and sacrificed the ram to the gods. The fleece of the ram, which had magical healing abilities, was then gifted to a king who had it being guarded by a dragon. In the myth of the Golden Fleece, Jason and the Argonauts try to acquire the said fleece. According to the sources I could find, Aries people are typed as quite fearless, both in good and in bad. Aries often does first and thinks only later, loves challenges, and overall is very fast-paced and not afraid of setbacks. People of Aries are prone to take leadership roles in situations and can therefore be a bit domineering and impatient at times, but their will to take matters into their own hands can also be a good thing, since their self-confidence and determination, that are borderline just stubbornness, will get them through almost anything. In their own way, Aries people are quite visionary, since they don't just adapt to old ideas, but are keen to create and popularize new ones. As a character archetype for my Aries character design, I went with a witch, with pyrokinetic powers to be exact, since Aries is a fire sign. Aries' symbol, the ram, is associated with witches and the devil, who is said to be the master of witches, and is often depicted having ram-like features. I made up a little backstory for each of these characters, explaining how and why they died and what kind of things they are up to after their resurrection as a supernatural being. For Aries, I was thinking that in her living life she was a healer in a rural, old-timey village. She practiced her craft with well-known and accepted methods, but also with more experimental and, let's say, mysterious ways. Maybe at some point the area got hit by a widespread sickness for unrelated reasons, and it started a mass panic and made people want to find someone to blame. Unfortunately, our healer was caught in this mess, her good intentions were turned against her, and she was accused of witchcraft. She went through a lot of mental and physical suffering and was eventually burned on the stake as a witch. The villagers breathed a sigh of relief, thinking they had solved their problem, but were proven to be dead wrong. In the moment of her death, the healer was filled with so much hate and feeling of injustice that she came back, this time as a real witch, with the power of fire manipulation. Each of the zodiac signs is associated with certain colors, and though while researching I found the information about those specific colors a bit conflicting at times, I tried my best to gather a palette for each character that included the most common colors to accompany each sign. And I think it was actually quite a fun little art challenge, taking colors which weren't necessarily put together with the cohesion of them in mind, and trying to make it work in an art piece by using different shades and saturations of said colors. We start with an easy one because Aries is very much associated with different shades of red and just fire colors, conveniently. I gave my Aries character this kinda traditional Eastern Europeanish style of clothing because I found some really cool pictures of that kind of style and thought it would also fit with my Aries character for being colorful and kinda witchy already. To make the clothes support the character's themes further, I made the different patterns to depict flames. I also gave her a wool coat that I tried to make more golden hue to refer to the Fleece myth, but I didn't like what it did to the whole design's color scheme, so I ended up leaving it in this darker shade. Each of the zodiac signs has their own unique symbol that is used in astrology and astronomy to refer to them, and so I tried to include also those to my designs somehow. For Aries, that means that I made the front of her vest corset thing to resemble the shape of the Aries symbol. The body part associated with Aries is the head, and since my main idea for these designs was to have each sign's assigned body part be somehow empathized in the design, I made her skin have a lots of burns, especially on her face, to point towards her backstory and death. She has the power of fire manipulation, so she's holding a little flame, her hands are smudged with ash, her dress hems are constantly burning, and she's leaving a trail of fire behind her. To visually represent the ram, she has the horns of one, and also her fiery eyes have rectangular pupils, which are the ones that sheep and goats have. How to survive this vengeful spirit in this fictional universe then? Aries is a quite dangerous entity since she is able to manifest fire and use it to her advantage even from a long distance, while herself being immune to its heat and damage. She, however, isn't a ghost, but a living, breathing person, so technically she can still be killed with other weapons if one is able to get near enough. She doesn't necessarily look for a fight, but doesn't hesitate to burn everything and everyone that gets in her way either, so the best method of surviving is just to stay away from her and not disturb her peace. Next up is Taurus, which is an earth sign and associated with Venus the planet. If your birthday is somewhere between April 20 and May 20, your zodiac sign is Taurus. Taurus gets its name from the Latin word meaning bull, so accordingly Taurus's symbol is a bull. Taurus originates mainly from the myth of abduction of Europa. Europa was a princess whom the Greek god Zeus fell in love with, transformed himself into a white bull, and swam to the island of Crete with Europa on his back, making her his lover. Taurus can also be linked to the Cretan bull myth, which depicts a queen of Crete getting cursed to fall in love with a bull and giving birth to a minotaur, a bull-human hybrid who was held in a labyrinth and ate humans sacrificed to him. Taurus people are described as being mostly quite chill and easygoing. They are calm and slow-paced and value quality over quantity, working quietly yet hard. Stability and security are very important for Taurus, and therefore they are patient, trustworthy, and persistent, both in good and in bad. They are tough, loyal, and, due to their earth element, very grounded, but can also be very stubborn, even when they themselves are the one in the wrong. Taurus doesn't get angry easily, but when they do, they get angry and will hold grudges for a long time. For some reason, Taurus sign is also very connected to luxury, pleasure, and beauty. They enjoy things like arts, good food, and materials, and tend to treat themselves with enjoyable, even expensive things. My Taurus character was once a normal, humble cattle farmer who lived with his wife and his children on a farm that had been in his family for generations. It was rumored that a long time ago an ancestor of his had hidden a great treasure on the farmlands. The farmer wasn't too concerned about this myth until one day when he happened upon the said treasure, consisting of jewels and golds that could change anyone's life. The farmer left the treasure to the ground for the time being to let himself think and mentioned it only to his trusted neighbors. The neighbors, however, got overrun by greed and jealousy, wanting a part of this one-of-a-kind chance to make them rich, so they agitated the farmer's cattle, causing the farmer to get trampled and gorged by his own animals. The farmer's death was ruled a horrible accident and his heartbroken family left the farm. However, when the neighbors went to dig the treasure up, they came face to face with the spirit of the farmer, who had become a guardian of the lands and its hidden treasure, driving away and even killing those who come near them with bad intentions. The farmer is still waiting for his descendants to return to the family lands and claim what is rightfully theirs. I chose Taurus to be a guardian spirit since people of Taurus are so connected to the value of security and trust. He is of course mostly inspired by the Minotaur, but also by the myth of a donkey or a goat man, an urban legend about a man who was once a farmer, was unjustifiably killed, and came back as a half-man hybrid to haunt the scene of his death. To refer to a bull, I made my Taurus character's overall shape quite bulky and intimidating, and have him have mixed bull and human characteristics. True to his backstory and element, Taurus is wearing muddy farming clothing and his shirt has a labyrinth pattern on it, to be a nod towards the Minotaur myth. He's also holding a digging fork that at last minute I actually went back to redesign to make it resemble the Taurus symbol. In the body, Taurus rules over the throat, neck and shoulders. The fatal hit that Taurus character got from the horns of his own cattle pierced his throat, so he's bleeding from that area. On top of everything, I sprinkled a lot of jewelry to point towards the treasure in Taurus' backstory and also Taurus people's preference for the finer things. The Taurus colors are green, brown and pink, which is not the color palette I would have picked for a character who is supposed to be large and ominous, but I really tried my best to make it work and make him look creepy instead of goofy. Taurus is one of the more benevolent of all of the spirits, and just like with Aries, it's best to just leave him alone. He guards only a certain area and doesn't care about anyone's whereabouts as long as they don't threaten that place. When that does happen, however, he becomes very fierce and dangerous and can also harm the living, usually piercing them with his digging fork or his horns. Taurus himself is a spirit, not made out of flesh and blood, so he himself can't be defeated with any physical weapon. Gemini is an air sign connected to the planet Mercury and your sign if your birthday is somewhere from May 21 to June 20. Gemini's symbol is a set of twins and is mythologically associated with a certain pair of twins. Greek heroes Castor and Pollux were born as twins to the same mother but had different fathers. While Castor's dad was a mortal king, Pollux was the immortal son of the god Zeus, who had charmed his mother in the form of a swan. The twins were notorious for having a strong bond with each other and always being together. So much so that when during one of their adventures Castor died, Pollux begged Zeus to let him share his immortality with his brother. Zeus reunited the two forever by making them the Gemini constellation. In astrology, those born under the Gemini constellation are seen first and foremost as very sociable, lively and talkative, almost to a chaotic degree. Gemini is a socially talented sign since they are charismatic, adaptable, fun, naturally curious, and are therefore often liked by other people. They are also full of ideas and thirst for new knowledge and skills. On the other hand, Gemini people can also be a bit too restless. They jump from one thing to another, get easily distracted, and can forget to let others talk and to listen themselves. I was kinda on the fence about what kind of ghost powers to give to Gemini. My first instinct was to make her a doppelganger, so a supernatural double of someone, usually seen as an omen of death. That would have been quite a good fit since Gemini literally means twins/doubles, but I still decided to make Gemini a poltergeist, because I thought it would best represent the chaotic energy I now associate the Gemini sign with. Poltergeist is a type of ghost that in itself is invisible but manifests in the living world by making noise, making lights flicker, moving objects and sometimes even by scratching or pushing people. Poltergeist phenomena has been theorized to center around a specific person who makes the things happen with unconscious telekinetic powers when the person in question is, for example, really emotional. Especially young girls have been blamed for causing poltergeists. So my Gemini character is in the form of two young twin girls. In their life they were inseparable, being orphans and having only each other to trust and shared an especially peculiar bond. Both of the girls were born deaf-mute but could communicate with each other through telepathy. So very early on they ended up in a traveling circus as one of the stars of the show. Telepathic twins, however, weren't interesting enough for the circus's ringleader, who saw a more gruesome potential in them to make their act even more marketable for the masses. He had the twins to be mutilated, sewn together as if they were born as conjoined twins. This caused the twins a lot of suffering and post-surgery complications, and they didn't live for many months after the ordeal. They, however, came back to the world of the living as a spirit to torment the man they should have been able to trust, eventually killing him with flying sharp objects. After that, the twins continued causing havoc all around, being each other's forever companion, also in death. The colors most accompanying the Gemini sign are yellow, orange, teal, and white, and that gave me quite a nice color palette, especially for the character's outfit. The Gemini sign is all about duality and opposites meeting, so I tried to make the Gemini character's design to also reflect this in the colors, details, and shapes of the design. The characters are holding a pair of theater masks with opposite expressions, which I think they would put on when they want to turn to their invisible form. Gemini rules over hands, arms, and lungs in the human body, so I just gave them a few extra arms, thinking that that would endorse them being a poltergeist, more hands to levitate objects and scratch the walls with. Multitasking. Hands are also connected to Gemini character's backstory because I think in their living life they would have used sign language and they died by hands literally sewing them together. To refer to this further, their outfit has a bloody stitches in the middle of it, and the twins are holding a sewing needle and a piece of yarn. Gemini is very connected to connection and communication, so it's kinda perfect that Gemini's ruling planet is Mercury, Mercury being named after the Roman messenger god. Mercury is also the god who has wings on his shoes, so to hint towards that, I put some feathers in Gemini's shoes, swan feathers to be exact, since in the Castor and Pollux myth, they were said to be born from a swan egg. I put the Gemini symbol in the design as two separate earrings that would connect from the middle to form the whole symbol, like one of those friendship necklaces. Gemini is more of a mischievous and non-deadly spirit. Her main powers are blowing winds, making objects move and fly, touching people, and overall influencing the living world more than the other ghosts are able to. The physical world doesn't hinder her, and she is able to become wholly invisible and fly through air. I also wanted to give her some mimic-like powers as a nod towards my original idea of her being a doppelganger, so maybe she still isn't able to speak on her own, but instead she can mimic any voice or noise possible. So when you hear a poltergeist scratching a wall, it may not be causing, but making the noise. The fourth zodiac is Cancer, meaning crab in Latin. Cancer is ruled over by the moon and is a water sign. Cancer people's birthday takes place between June 21 and July 22. Cancer originates from the Greek myth of Labors of Hercules, where the said hero had to prove himself to be worthy of immortality through completing 12 different difficult tasks given to him by the gods. When Hercules was fighting the multi-headed monster Hydra, the queen god Hera, who didn't really like Hercules, sent a giant crab to distract him during the battle. The crab managed to pinch Hercules, but he ended up crushing it with his foot. Hera then rewarded the brave crab by making it the Cancer constellation. People of Cancer are described as very nurturing and sensitive. They are the most family-oriented of all of the signs and are prone to help, protect, and take care of others. They have a deep connection with feelings, both with their own and with others, and therefore are often led by feelings rather than reason. Cancer's weakness is that they may care even a bit too much. They aren't that good at opening up about their own problems and easily prioritize others, even when they don't have resources for it. At first, I really wasn't sure how to represent the Cancer sign as a supernatural being, but after I made the connection between crab's claws and scissors connection to dissecting, I actually got really excited to get to draw her. My inspiration for Cancer were Frankenstein's monster and the zombie-like beings from Stephen King's Pet Sematary. My Cancer girl isn't representing any specific type of spirit, but is just generally a walking corpse who has been resurrected to an unnatural, confusing, and painful half existence. In her life, Cancer was a woman suffering from some kind of mental disorder that got her locked in a mental asylum and separated from her children and other family. Her backstory takes place in the time of the world when mental illness was treated with quite an unethical methods, and mental institutes were more like prisons for people not fitted for society. Because of this and the general heartbreak, eventually Cancer Girl too died within the asylum walls, forgotten and ashamed by her family, and without her consent her viscera were cut out and given away. In the morgue, the strong longing for things taken from her made the Cancer Girl wake up, cold and uneasy in the body in which she didn't belong anymore, take two scissors and, let's say, start to look for her taken body parts. Cancer-associated colors are pale blue, pale red, and especially silvery white, which worked for me more than fine since I already wanted her to have this hospital/asylum aesthetic, and white is of course the most common color of said places. Her outfit is a mix between a straitjacket and this kinda Bride of Frankenstein-esque look with the bandages wrapped around her arms and all. As a small bonus Easter egg to Frankenstein, I also gave her a white streak on her hair. Her giant scissors are of course the most on-the-nose reference to the crab's claws, and since Cancer rules over the chest area, I put poorly stitched wounds there to imply where she was cut up when her viscera were taken out after her death. To make her element water represented in the design, she is crying an awful lot of tears, so much so that they are forming a puddle in her feet. This also ties to Cancer, the zodiac sign, being so associated with feelings. Lastly, I put the symbol of Cancer in this little tag that is usually strung around the toe of the deceased to make it easy to identify them in the morgue, therefore also making my Cancer girl look just resurrected. Cancer is an especially tragic character, but if she wasn't a little mad before, she is that definitely now, and is considered malevolent in her horrifying post-life existence. Cancer is more of a physical being, since she is just a walking corpse, and can therefore be defeated. It is still not easy though, since she can be quite unpredictable. She looks very frail and victim-like, and often reinforces this by acting accordingly. But she also has some superhuman strength and speed, and uses her weapon swiftly and without mercy if given a chance. If she is able to attack you, she goes straight for your stomach and chest area with her scissors, since her goal is to see if you happen to have her entrails. To defeat her, you would have to go a little overboard, since she has already died once and can therefore take more damage than a normal living person. Next we have Leo, which is a fire sign and quite suitably ruled over by the sun. Leo season is between the dates of July 23 and August 22. Leo's mythical counterpart is the Nemean lion, which was a great lion-like beast terrorizing the area of Nemea, hunting, luring, and killing people. The lion had a golden fur that could not be penetrated by any mortal weapon, and the beast was therefore deemed to be undefeatable. However, Hercules, as one of his labors, was tasked to kill the lion and bring its skin as a proof. Since Hercules couldn't kill the lion with any weapon, he ended up strangling it with his bare hands and skinning it with the lion's own claws, which in turn were able to cut any possible material. Guards then placed the defeated lion as the Leo constellation. Those born during the Leo constellation's rule are said to be confident, ambitious, and enjoying the spotlight. They are outgoing, expressive, and optimistic, and love to perform and create new things in an almost flamboyant way. Due to being connected to the lion, often described as the king of all animals, the Leo sign too is associated with regalness, and just like the other fire signs, Leo gravitates to a leadership role and is described as a brave and warm one. They are almost overly loyal and generous to those they care about, and most of the time they mean well. Leo's fault comes in believing in themselves sometimes too much. Their self-confidence can get to their head and make them dominating, self-centered, and even arrogant, needing constant validation and attention from others. Leo's supernatural form is of course a werewolf creature, but with lion-like qualities instead of those of a wolf. He was once a powerful king in his own empire, but was known more for his cruelty than his good leadership. He loved to organize big dramatic shows where people, mostly different kinds of prisoners and those he saw as his enemies, were thrown to lions for his own entertainment. But eventually people had enough when the king only cared about the good, enjoyable parts of being a king and didn't trouble himself with the problems of a common man, and an uprising started. The king was overthrown and the revolution ended with the previous king being given to the same lions he once fed others to. The lions mauled him to death, and it is said that one of the lions ripped his heart out of his chest during the attack. The king returned as a tattered, violent, and bloodthirsty creature wandering the rocky hills on the border of his lost kingdom. Leo's main color is of course gold, with orange and yellow as accent colors, which creates a warm palette suited for the fire element. For Leo's vibe, I took inspiration from basic fantasy royalty and Roman emperors who in real life used to feed people to the lions for their own and others' amusement. Leo is full of still bleeding wounds and his clothes are torn from him being attacked. Leo's sign is associated with heart and the spine, so I made the ornament on his robe thing to resemble a human spine, and then there's a little hole in his chest, only a little flame in the place of his heart to point towards the sign's element, and the fact that the Leo constellation's brightest star Regulus is located as the heart of the lion. I think this flame would be a manifestation of the character's burning anger that would keep his body running even after death. I gave him a big golden shield with the sun and the Leo symbol carved to it to represent the impenetrable skin of the Nemean lion. Hercules was depicted wearing the lion skin as a protective cloak, so I straight up just gave that also to my character. To make him more beast-like, I gave Leo sharp claws and fangs and overall made his features a little cat/lion-like. Leo is a very violent creature and chooses always to attack no matter the circumstances. His fighting methods are based on his blind rage, endurance, and animal-like agility. He can move both on 2 and on 4 limbs and is able to do a lot of damage with his claws and fangs. His readiness to fight can still be for your benefit though, since Leo doesn't really plan or calculate his attacks, only trusting his instincts when he goes on a rampage, so if you are able to keep him far enough and use your smarts, you should be able to defeat him. As a flesh and blood being, he is able to be killed. The sixth, so the middle zodiac sign is Virgo, an earth sign ruled over by the planet Mercury. You are a Virgo if your birthday is some date from 23rd of August to 22nd of September. Virgo is represented by a virgin/a maiden, symbolizing modesty and innocence. Due to Virgo being an earth sign, in many different cultures the character is also interpreted to be a goddess of harvest, which stands for fertility and productivity. Virgo's mythology can be linked to many different female characters. Most notable examples are Demeter, the Greek goddess of agriculture, her daughter Persephone, the goddess of spring, and the goddess of innocence Astraea, who lived among mortals but according to the myth, decided to transform herself into a constellation after humanity started to become evil and corrupt. Virgo is the largest zodiac constellation and the whole sky's second largest constellation. One of the brightest stars, Spica, is also located in Virgo, making it therefore also the brightest zodiac star. People of Virgo are characterized as, in a single word, perfectionistic. Virgo loves routine, planning, structure, and order. They are practical, diligent, good at prioritizing, and they want to improve themselves and to help others to improve themselves. Therefore, Virgo people are really reliable and great at management. But they are also meticulous and alert, which may make them get easily stuck in the little details and be overly critical towards themselves and others. Virgo can often also have a type of disaster mindset, always worrying and preparing unnecessarily much for things to go wrong. Virgo's ghost type is the ghastly bride. I thought it would be a good fit because especially in the olden days, virginity and chastity were very much tied to waiting till marriage, and brides with their white clothes were kinda seen as the symbol of purity. For her character, I was inspired by various female ghosts, who often are considered to be omens of death, like the White Lady in many German legends, or otherwise bringing a message beyond the grave, like Zona Hester, who actually got her husband jailed for her murder by appearing in her mother's dreams as a ghost. Virgo character was the young, beautiful, and sophisticated daughter of some rich family, and because of her beauty and status, she had no lack of suitors. But she wanted to marry for love and was able to persuade her parents to let her marry a poorer, yet charming man whom she had secretly been in love with for a long time already. It, however, became very soon clear that her newlywed husband hadn't actually loved her back and only wanted her for her money. And when the marriage was certified, the husband knocked her unconscious and buried her in the ground in some remote woods, planning to act as if she had just disappeared. But the bride woke up in the ground, and her death was filled with feelings of panic, hopelessness, and betrayal. Driven by these feelings, she rose from her unmarked burial place to haunt the site, all of her former grace now gone. There really isn't that much to say about the Virgo character's design. She's a rotting corpse of a woman dressed in a tattered wedding dress, stained with soil and overgrown fungi and vegetation. My basic idea for her design was to make her a stark contrast to how Virgo people are described and how she probably was in her living life, so perfect, pure and clean. But now as a ghost, she has become one with the earth, her element. The body parts associated with Virgo are intestines, digestive system, and stomach overall. So I had her guts be exposed in a gruesome way, probably because of natural rotting and different insects breaking through the soft tissue of her stomach. To reference Virgo's connection to harvest and fertility, her bride bouquet includes crop plants and also chrysanthemums, which are Virgo's associated flower. Virgo's main color palette seems to be consisting of different shades of brown and green, with also silver white and this ochre wheat color. The Virgo symbol is in the design as her golden necklace. Virgo is the most traditional ghost of the bunch, so she can't hurt, touch, or otherwise physically influence the living, but she has the ability to appear in people's dreams and therefore get inside your head unlike the other characters. She is one of the more benevolent beings and is rather a warning spirit, even though those getting scared by her eerie apparition don't always realize it at first. I also think it would be cool if she had some banshee characteristics, so maybe she could let out this loud, blood-curdling wailing that would work as a bad omen. Next up is Libra, which is an earth sign and associated with the planet Venus. If you have happened to be born somewhere around September 23 and October 22, you are a Libra. Libra, Latin for scales, is mainly seen to originate from the Greek goddess Themis, who was the personification of justice and law and was depicted holding a set of scales and often also a sword. The Lady Justice figure, whose concept you might already be familiar with, is inspired by Themis. You could probably already guess it, but the people born during the Libra season are seen as valuing justice, concord, and honesty above all else. People of Libra are socially gifted and charming. They are great at connecting individuals, seeing both sides of opposite forces, working together with others, and acting as a peacemaker in challenging situations. Libra's weakness lies in reluctance of picking a side and making a decision. They might avoid confrontation and just want to please everyone. I initially struggled with this character quite a lot, since I just couldn't come up with a good enough character idea for them. I just knew I wanted my Libra character to be tied to setting things right. I mean, even more than the other characters. But then my mind went, what kind of thing is the most neutral, sees only facts and makes decisions purely based on logic? A machine. So yeah, my Libra character ended up being a cyborg, a being that is made out of both organic and mechanical parts. This character was heavily inspired by Ghost in the Shell, an animated movie which story centers around the idea of a human soul or a ghost in an otherwise mechanical body, viewing cyborg as basically a modern/futuristic type of ghost. Libra character lived in a world with a near-future setting and worked as a renowned negotiator for a powerful government company. In one of their missions, however, they got shot in their back and got fatally wounded, and to save them, the damaged organic parts have to be changed to synthetic ones. Their wealthy employer took care of it all, but while seeing Libra get used to their new, powerful, better body, they started thinking just how powerful they could be if even more body parts were replaced. Little by little, the employers coaxed Libra to take part in even more surgeries, planning to make them into a super negotiator who could blend their human skills to synthetic ones. This goes so far that in the end, Libra can't differentiate anymore where their humanity ends and where the machine begins. This makes them have a full-blown identity crisis and eventually go on rogue, finding a new meaning in a morally grey superhero-style career where they roam the city and use their skills to uphold justice, acting as the judge and the executioner. The colors associated with Libra are pink, peach, violet, and light blue, which I tried to make into this futuristic, metallic palette to fit the characters' themes. I also chose Libra to have a more androgynous shape compared to the other characters, since Libra is all about balance. Instead of a physical set of scales, Libra is projecting the scales as a holograph. I think these scales would kinda work as a visualizer of what decision Libra comes to about a certain person based on all the data they have collected about them. And when the scales happen to not be favorable, Libra uses his sword, which is a reference to the Lady Justice figure. When it comes to the Libra symbol, I baked it into the designs of the scales and the sword handle. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the scales were a significant piece of imagery, since they were said to be used in weighing the souls of the deceased to see if the soul was worthy enough to enter the underworld. This was done by Anubis, a jackal-headed god of the dead, whom I wanted to include to my Libra design by giving them this, I guess, a mask or a helmet in the shape of the Anubis head. The mask has a metallic visor to imply that it probably enhances Libra's abilities to analyze their surroundings, and also to work as a visual reminder of the blindfold that the Lady Justice figure is often depicted wearing. In the body, Libra rules over the lower back and parts like kidneys and bladder, and in the character's backstory, it is implied that their lower body parts got paralyzed after being shot in the back, so I wanted to bring focus there by making the lower back area where the mechanical and organic parts sort of connect via cords and wires. Libra is truly neutral and analytical force, and in their own mind they are doing the right thing, even if their methods can be quite brutal. They are able to read and detect intentions, actions, personality, and truthfulness based on databases and signs beyond normal human comprehension, and therefore foresee outcomes and situations to a certain degree. Libra's goal is to maintain justice, honesty, and harmony, so if you don't have anything to hide, you should be okay. But I also think Libra's sense of justice might have gotten even a bit too mechanical and black and white, and they, for example, can't take context into account. Next we have, of course, the best zodiac sign since I have happened to be born under it. Scorpio is a water sign and is influenced by Pluto. My and yours, if you are Scorpio, birthday is a date between October 23 and November 21. Scorpio's lore is tied to the great mythological hunter Orion, who was kinda cocky and bragged how he could kill every animal on Earth. This angered the Earth goddess Gaia, who sent a giant Scorpio to sting Orion, therefore killing him. The Scorpion in question was rewarded and made into a constellation. People of Scorpio are described as passionate, resourceful, and curious. Scorpio is very tied to intimacy, in more ways than one, and they really want to connect with a thing or a person before they commit and share their loyalty. Scorpio values deep and genuine bonds the best, and even in that case, they are still quite distant and private. Scorpio's fault does come at being too secretive and overprotecting their peace, and being too possessive of things and people they have accepted into their inner circle. Just like the other water signs, Scorpio too is linked to spirituality and is especially connected to death, darkness, and occult, but also to renewal and healing. Our Scorpio character's backstory takes place in the vague Victorian era. She was a wealthy, quite mysterious viscountess who was widowed after her rich husband died in a slightly dubious circumstances. As many other aristocrats in the Victorian era, Scorpio too had interest in the occult. She was known to gather interesting people in her tight inner circle and host secret meetings in her home. The less known thing about her was that she produced a difficult-to-detect poison and used it to make sick, sometimes even to kill those who she didn't like or who otherwise were on her way. There were many rumors about the Viscountess, but never any solid evidence against her, so she was still respected in the high society, but probably more because of fear. One day, though, the maid of the Viscountess unfolded her horrible doings and decided to put a stop to them and kill the Viscountess with her own poison. The Viscountess, however, was later resurrected by her occult friends and came back as a vampire-like being. I think it's kinda self-evident why I chose Scorpio to be a vampire. In my mind, the poison of a Scorpio and the poison of a vampire kinda just connect with each other, and also the color Scorpio is mostly connected to, so black and very dark shades of different colors, especially reds and greens, are just vampire core in itself. But since my Scorpio character is based on a Scorpio, shocker, I tried to design a vampire character who, instead of bat-like characteristics, has references to scorpions. From the get-go, I knew I needed Scorpio Lady to have her hair on this long, sharp-ended braid to be reminiscent of a scorpion's tail and the iconic stinger. I based Scorpio's outfit on ones from the Victorian era, but made it her own by giving Scorpio-like details. For example, the shape of the gloves and the dress's bust piece look like Scorpion's claws, and her hat has Scorpio's associated flower, geranium, and a skull to stand for Scorpio's connection to death. I also included these spider-leg looking things into the outfit, and then of course there's the literal on-the-nose Scorpio pattern. Scorpio rules over the most mysterious and less talked about body parts, so reproductive organs and lower intestines. Through these, Scorpio is associated with sensuality and the creation of life. I wasn't really sure how to incorporate these organs into the design without making it weird and awkward, so I decided to lean more towards blood as her theme, because somewhere I read that Scorpio is also the zodiac sign linked to blood. And, well, you know, vampires. And also because blood is a fluid, it also works as a reference towards Scorpio's element, water. So yeah, I filled the design with red pearls and droplet-shaped jewelry, and in the end, not to totally discard the reproductive organs, I did end up putting this extra decoration on her dress that is approximately where the uterus is, and kinda gave it the stylized shape of one. To reference Scorpion's death and both death powers, I gave her these green spots all around her skin to stand for the fatal poisoning, and in her hand she is holding a little teacup that is filled with something suspicious. The Scorpio symbol is painted in the teacup. Scorpio is a malevolent being, but her powers are based more on subtlety than outright attacking someone. She likes to stay mysterious and play with her victim before killing them, and one of her main weapons is actually her magnetic yet deceitful nature. She draws people near her, and when the victim is in trance, she uses her venomous fangs to finish the job. Scorpio is able to be defeated with weapons, but it can be hard since her skin isn't easily penetrated, and even when she is wounded, she is able to heal herself quite quickly. Sagittarius is a fire sign ruled by Jupiter, and its birthday takes place between November 22 and December 21. Sagittarius is represented by an archer centaur, a half-human, half-horse creature. The best-known centaur must be Chiron from the Greek mythology, and so also Sagittarius is linked to him. Chiron was the mentor to many Greek heroes and was knowledgeable especially in medicine and archery. He was immortal, but was once accidentally shot with a poisoned arrow by one of his students. Chiron couldn't heal himself and neither could he die, so he decided to give up on his immortality. To honor him, the gods placed him to the sky as the Sagittarius constellation. The people of Sagittarius are characterized as being adventurous, open-minded, and charismatic. They value freedom the most and are therefore known to love learning new things and taking on challenges, exploring both the world and themselves. They are often liked by people for their outgoing, enthusiastic, and fun personality, but despite enjoying others' company, Sagittarius is also highly independent and does as they please. Sagittarius can also be fun and wild to a reckless, adrenaline-junkie degree, making them unpredictable and unfiltered company. Sagittarius' restlessness can make them break promises and lead to a lack of commitment. Sagittarius' character was once a charming and heroic leader of a skilled group of huntsmen who roamed the land, taking on the most dangerous tasks that gave them fame and glory. Sagittarius was notorious for his aim with the bow, but also for his recklessness and reputation as a womanizer, and this led to him having an affair with his right-hand man's wife. The right-hand man found out about this and started to plan a revenge. He managed to turn also the rest of the group against their leader, since during the years the group dynamic had already been cracking. Sagittarius had led the group to stupidly dangerous situations far too many times, not expressing a certain amount of care a good leader should have, and overall acting arrogantly. So one day, when the group were out hunting deep in the wilderness, the group turned their arrows towards their surprised leader and shot him to death, later telling the same fabricated story about Sagittarius' luck finally running out while hunting. Sagittarius wasn't forever gone, however, and fueled by vengeance, his spectre continued to wander the forest, cursed to be forever looking for those who killed him. Sagittarius' character is a supernatural hunter inspired by Headless Horseman, The Wild Hunt, and Hernet the Hunter. Just generally folklore characters who are manically riding across the lands wielding a weapon. Sagittarius' color palette consists of violet, orange/yellow, and teal, and for some reason I struggled with these colors quite a bit, even though I do think they objectively make a really nice palette. I still can't pinpoint what exactly was the problem, but I tried to work around it by making the colors a bit darker, which kinda worked, I guess. For Sagittarius' clothing and looks, I was mostly inspired by Renaissance style and musketeers because even though Sagittarius' backstory takes place in a very vague time of the world, I think those embody the kind of masculine flamboyancy I wanted the character to have. He's got a historical jock vibe is what I'm trying to say. Instead of a normal looking bow, I gave him one that is made out of living wood, quite simply because I thought it would look interesting and make the whole design feel more supernatural. To reference Sagittarius' connection to fire, he is shooting burning arrows with also the fletching of the arrows looking like flames. The symbol of Sagittarius is in his hat and also as a more simplified version in some of the design's buckles. Sagittarius died by being shot with arrows, so those arrows have stayed also with his ghost form and are especially centered in his legs, since legs, hips and thighs are the sign's associated body parts. I decided not to make Sagittarius a full-blown centaur, but still wanted to include horses somehow in the design, so I gave Sagittarius the legs of a horse. I'm not sure if he would still be riding a ghost horse if he just clip-clops through the woods with his own hooves. The cloth tied around his waist gives a subtle impression of a tail, and then of course I just had to put his hair on a ponytail. Sagittarius is considered a malevolent ghost since he will most likely start hunting and shooting flaming arrows with a supernatural precision at those who he comes across in the woods. He gives a fierce and suspenseful chase, causes havoc and distress, but is able to inflict physical harm only with his arrows. In the same way, he himself is said not to be able to be hurt with anything other than a bow and arrow. Sagittarius can also have a softer side, and sometimes he helps those who he deems are not to be hunted, so usually women and children, showing traces of the trusted hero and leader he once used to be. Capricorn is an earth sign and ruled by Saturn the planet. You are a Capricorn if you are born between December 22 and January 19th. Capricorn's symbol is a sea goat, a mountain goat with the tail of a fish, which originates from a myth about Pan, the Greek god of the wild nature, flocks and shepherds. In the myth, Pan transformed himself into a sea goat when he was escaping the monster Typhon into a river. Capricorn can also be linked to a goat which suckles Zeus after he was saved from being devoured by his father Kronos. One of the goat's horns broke off and became cornucopia, a mythical horn that was filled with fruits, nuts and other produce and was said never to run out of them. Capricorn's constellation Capricornus is the smallest constellation in the zodiac. People born under this constellation are seen as being responsible, disciplined, and maybe more conservative than the other signs. Capricorn people are very no-nonsense. They value hard work, status, and success career-wise, and are quite traditional and serious in their thinking. Capricorn's ambition and careful planning can get them really far, and they are good at reaching their set goals and also mentoring others, but their workaholism can make them neglect their loved ones, be quite hard on others, and generally not really fun to be around. Capricorn character was once a simple shepherd who lived in a small, remote, rural mountain village. The village suffered very harsh winters and got easily closed off from the outside world thanks to piling snow, and one fateful winter the situation got worse than it had ever been. The temperature was freezing and food became so scarce that as a last desperate act, the villagers decided to pick one of their own and feed on him. The shepherd was picked and, despite his objection, got killed and devoured by his neighbors. His bones were hidden in the forest as a shameful proof of the horrible act, not to let anyone from the outside world know what had happened. The other villagers were able to survive till spring and rejoice when the snow finally began to melt and flowers bloom. But they also started to notice traces of a strange new creature in the forest, a creature that started to break into the houses at night and feast on human flesh. The shepherd returning in a new terrifying shape. I chose Capricorn to be a cannibal creature because there are actually quite many details in Capricorn's lore and overall facts that hint towards hunger and therefore also cannibalism. First of all, Capricorn's ruling planet is Saturn, and Saturn the god, who the planet is named after, was infamous for eating his children. Cornucopia from the Zeus and Goat myth deals around the theme of abundance and can therefore also be connected to its opposite feeling, hunger. And then the body parts being ruled by Capricorn happen to be skin, bones, and teeth. I was also inspired by prion disease, or as it's sometimes called, the cannibalism disease. Prion disease is actually a group of different diseases, but what they have all in common is that they have been known to be transmitted by cannibalism. So Capricorn ended up being this kinda Wendigo-like being, but with my own twist. My goal was to make Capricorn look like the vegetation has taken so much over his discarded bones that it has kind of become his new flesh, keeping the bones together. I made Capricorn of course have horns to refer to its symbol, the mountain goat, but made them have this more spiral shape to resemble prions, so the proteins that are responsible for the prion disease. He has mostly goat-like characteristics, but to hint towards the fish part of the sea goat, as Capricorn's bones have molded into new shapes, his hocks have taken a shape similar to fins. Capricorn is holding a staff that is kinda a mix between a shepherd's crook and a flute, an instrument that Pan the god is often depicted playing. The Capricorn symbol is tied in the staff as an amulet. Capricorn has a very earthy color palette consisting of grey, brown, ochre, and green. Like Leo, Capricorn too is a very violent attacker, but unlike Leo, he actually plans and calculates his attacks. Capricorn is a tremendously patient and smart creature who waits for the perfect moment to strike and uses most of his time hunting. He's always hungry because his body can't actually digest any of the food that goes through his teeth and throat. Most of the damage he makes comes from his size, his claws, and the 2 rows of fangs, but he also uses his flute staff to play a hunting melody that can lure people to him. Capricorn is able to be defeated, but it's definitely not easy because he doesn't have an actual body and therefore can't feel any pain. To kill Capricorn, you would have to break him totally into pieces and preferably make it so that those pieces can never reassemble ever again. Aquarius is the second last zodiac sign and, despite the name, not a water but an air sign. Aquarius' associated planet is the ice giant Uranus. You are an Aquarius if you are born between January 20 and February 18. Aquarius originates from the myth about the young mortal man Ganymede, whose beauty caught the eye of Zeus, who abducted the youth in the form of an eagle, brought him to Olympus as his lover and cupbearer, and placed him to the sky as the Aquarius constellation. The constellation depicts a man pouring water from a jug, and the Aquarius name translates to water carrier from Latin. You know, a person whose job is to collect and carry water. The Aquarius people are described as being very aware of social problems. They are progressive and open-minded in their thinking, active and innovative, and even a bit rebellious when trying to make the world a better place for everybody. They value individuality, but also common good and helping others, especially those who have it worse than them. Aquarius people can also be a bit stubborn and detached, while having a tunnel vision on certain subjects, which may make other people keep their distance. Just like the other air signs, Aquarius too is a social sign, but it is a bit harder for them to create actual bonds because they themselves don't let others close to them that easily. My Aquarius character's backstory takes place in a dry, desert city. Their sufficiency of clean water is a big problem, and people die all the time of cholera and dehydration. Aquarius was an inspiring young innovator who wanted to help others and fight against inequality, and so he came up with a way to pump water from the ground and bring it to the city via an aqueduct. This made the common people really happy and grateful, but angered those who had benefited monetarily from others' suffering. The water owners, so some evil corporation I guess, pretended to be interested in the innovator's project though and joined him in the construction site. And when he was not looking, they pushed him to his death from a high place. The water owners framed the incident as accidental and wished the innovator's death would mean their own continuing dominance over the water supplies. But the innovator returned from the dead and brought quite literally a storm with him, punishing the wrongdoers but also helping those in need. While watching the speed paint, you might have already noticed that when I say that I struggled with this one, I struggled. First of all, it took me forever to come up with a character idea that would refer to the water-bearer name, but also not make water the main theme in the design, since Aquarius is an air sign. So I decided to make Storm his main theme, a natural combination of both air and water, and have him be some kind of human-bird hybrid, inspired by the concept of a thunderbird, a creature in Native American mythology said to cause storms, and by the Ganymede myth where Zeus, who himself is the god of sky and thunder, turns himself into an eagle. My next struggle was how humanoid should I make the design. I came up with a few different alternative concepts, but finally decided on a harpy, a creature with a bird's body and the head of a human, because harpies are referred to as personification of storm winds. I based Aquarius' bird body on desert falcons, due to his backstory taking place in a dry climate, and showed his powers as lightning strikes going all around his body. In the human body, Aquarius rules over the circulatory system, so I thought that the shape those lightning strikes form would also refer to it. I of course just had to give him a jar with the Aquarius symbol, since all the Aquarius-related imagery relies so heavily on the water-bearer character. Finally, I slapped some jewelry on him to make the design overall more interesting and detailed. The colors most commonly associated with Aquarius are blue, silver/grey, turquoise, and a little bit of lilac going on. Aquarius is considered a benevolent being. He's very wise and calm, yet a little bit distant. He's more of a protector character who looks out for people from afar and sometimes helps them, especially during dry seasons when there is a lack of water and therefore a risk of famine and dehydration. It is very lucky for the living that Aquarius is as peaceful as he is, because he is the most powerful one of all of these entities, and his powers include bringing in rains, conjuring storms, channeling lightning, and creating literal natural disasters. Alongside of these powers, Aquarius also has the added benefit of ability of flight and some very sharp talons. So when Aquarius rarely attacks, it's basically an instant overkill. Last but not least is the zodiac sign of Pisces, translating from Latin to fishes. Quite naturally, Pisces is a water sign and is ruled over by the ocean blue Neptune planet. You are a Pisces if your birthday is between 19th of February and 20th of March. Pisces' symbol is two fishes swimming in opposite directions. Pisces originate from the myth about the gods Aphrodite and Eros escaping Typhon by transforming into fishes and tying themselves from their tails together to avoid getting separated. In another interpretation of the myth, the gods were saved by two fishes. Pisces people are typed as being really connected to the subconscious, even more than the other water signs. Pisces is very sensitive, imaginative, hopelessly dreamy, and idealistic. They often live head up in the clouds, dreaming of things they would like to acquire, achieve, or do in the fantastical future, which makes them a bit mystical and detached from the everyday life. Pisces does get easily trapped between fantasy and reality, and can be overly optimistic, unsuspicious, and even naive when they try to make their inner world logic work in the world outside of it. Because of their dreamy nature, they don't necessarily have the means to put their dreams into reality, but they instead sink themselves deeper into the sea of escapism. Pisces' characters' parents were renowned marine explorers belonging to an intellectual elite and had dedicated their lives to traveling the sea and uncovering its secrets. They took their daughter with them from a very young age, passing their interest to her, so she ended up not spending that much time just on the shore either. Pisces dreamed of big adventures of her own and was especially desperate to get to the bottom of the ocean to see all of it herself. One day though, their voyage was interrupted by pirates attacking the ship, killing and robbing everyone on board. Pisces' feet were bound together and she was thrown to the sea that she used to love so much, left to drown. Overtaken by fury for losing her family and having all her dreams unfilled, she rose from the bottom of the sea as a siren. Quite ironically, in her new supernatural form, she herself turned to piracy and started to cause havoc as a feared pirate queen, but still retaining her interest in exploration and adventures. I don't think I need to explain why I chose Pisces to be a siren/mermaid character. To refer to the Pisces sign being called fishes, I tried to design her tail to look like it's made from two different parts. Originally, I planned her to have literally two tails, but then I ran into this very cool picture of a beluga whale that for some reason looks like it has human legs under its skin. I translated this into my design by her still having her two human legs, but them being kinda conjoined together as a mermaid's tail, her legs being tied together with a rope which caused her death. In human body, Pisces is associated with the feet. To reference Pisces' role as a pirate queen and the time period her backstory probably takes place in, she has a long jacket, big hat with ocean flora as decoration, and a sword that I tried to make resemble shark's fangs. Overall, I wanted her to look like she has spent some time laying motionless on the ocean floor, bay barnacle and sea stars have grown over her skin and clothes, and her features resemble those of someone drowned. As Pisces has turned into a siren, her skin has turned into scales and she has gotten webbed ears. Lastly, I filled her design with white little pearls, as they are formed in the ocean, and made her belt buckle in the shape of the Pisces symbol. Pisces colors, quite self-evidently, are seafoam green, grey and lavender. Pisces is mostly a malevolent entity, and she doesn't shy away from her ruthless, cunning, and adventurous pirate queen tasks, but just like her sign, she too has a duality in her, and she is also a more quiet scholar. I think her general vibe would be kinda dreamy and eccentric, and it would be easy to distract her with interesting facts and stories, but what makes her unpredictable is that in the middle of her describing the life cycle of a coral or something, she might just suddenly stab you. Pisces has the ability to turn her tail to legs and the other way around by binding her ankles with something, reminiscing the way how she originally died. Her powers include being able to manipulate water to a certain degree and a siren song, with which she can mesmerize and control those who hear it. Just like any other pirate, she can also wield a weapon, and she has a whole crew on her side, whom she has gathered together in a Davy Jones style from different dying sailors. Here we are again at the end of the video. For some reason I struggle with this one more than usually. I have worked on this little by little ever since last December, kinda surfing on my motivation that was sometimes up and sometimes down. And my most significant amount of progress was actually in like the past month, when I kinda just forced myself to finally finish this. Still, if you know me at all, you also know that I love horror as a genre, and could therefore probably already guess that designing and making up lore for these characters was right up my alley. It was really satisfying to dwell into the research of the zodiac signs and find so many interesting things to connect to different kinds of supernatural character archetypes, and still make those characters have their own twist. Before this, I also didn't even know that much about the zodiac signs, especially regarding their lore, so I hope you learned something new, because I definitely did. I once again made some alignment charts of this time's character group, and you should be seeing them on the screen about now. So, as we tend to say here, let me know which character was your favorite, what is your zodiac sign, and did the characteristics I described apply to you at all? I still have so many ideas for future videos, so stay tuned and I'll see you there.